time is 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. I appreciate your indulgence in allowing me to start this proposed 10 o'clock meeting just slightly late. This is a called meeting of the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board, and the date is Friday, February the 19th. Our first item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I have asked Mr. Jim Jeffries to lead us in those.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Our second item of business is roll call.
Chair Amy Whitcliffe.
Present.
Roy Fontana.
Present.
Jim Jeffries.
Present.
Walker Beard.
Here.
Clayton Black.
Present.
Patrick Carlson. Jesse Barba. Brian Patton. Present. And Chester Renfro.
Present.
Welcome to our meeting. Today's a day that we have the opportunity to honor some of our board members, and specifically one that's an outgoing board member that's been around a very long time. We also get the opportunity to welcome a new board member as a result of the actions. So we'll start with saying, Buster, welcome to our group. We look very much forward to your knowledge and your background as you take over the seat that's been held long-standing by a fellow worker of yours. Kristen, go ahead.
Madam Chair, a motion to excuse absences.
Thank you. We do have one member absent. Thank you for calling that to my attention. There is we do need to take some action on that. Is there a motion to excuse Mr. Carlson?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, Mr. Barba, and a second from Mr. Black. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Has anyone heard from Mr. Carlson? Okay, thank you. So now I apologize again for bouncing things around, but I would like the opportunity to open the floor to anyone else that would like to welcome Buster, and then we will recognize our outgoing board member.
Well, I'll real quickly say welcome, Buster. I just got to visit with him and understand that he was out in the Midland area where I'm from, so refereed some basketball games where I probably played back in the 80s, so welcome aboard and glad you're here.
I'd also like to welcome Buster, and I've known Buster for a number of years, and he'll be a asset to the board, and say goodbye to Mark, who has been a real, pretty much from the beginning, and knows the basis on how what the board went through initially, and I think they probably did. They were the investigators when the board was started. We didn't have any investigators, so we'll miss him.
Buster, welcome. I've met you once before down in the office, and I'm very excited to have you here, replacing some really big shoes. However, I am sure that you're up for the task, and welcome.
I also join the rest of the board and welcome you, Buster.
And I welcomed you earlier, but I'll welcome you again.
I'll second that. Welcome, Buster.
And then if we could get Mark, can you meet me down front? You going to join me? Sure. There's a lot of stuff to carry.
Yeah, I think I'm going to come around and
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It is really hot.
Do this so the record. Mark, I just want to say personally how much of an asset you have been to me as I transitioned into this organization. The history lessons you provide, I think, outlast everyone here. I think you have been our source of ability to look back and understand why things have happened the way they were, or rules are set the way they are. And it's amazing how important history is to an organization that's as young as this one is in the whole scheme of things. And I think you've been serving, do you remember how long?
I believe if you count all the way up to February, 12 and a half years now.
Wow, so 2003?
Yep.
So 2003 to today, he served this organization and has been the consistent or constant source of background information, solid decision-making, willingness to engage a debate when the debate was necessary, carried a lot of water when the agency was young and when we actually had no paid enforcement staff. The team actually did it themselves. So I very much appreciate your service. I know those before me also appreciate your service, and those long after you and I are gone, I think will benefit from the foundation you laid. So thank you very much. We've got some things that we have brought to honor you, and they come nowhere close to actually expressing our appreciation for the many man-hours you've invested. This one says, to you in recognition of your dedicated service to the citizens of Texas as a member of the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board from June of 2003 to February 2016.
Thank you.
And then, of course,
I'll take
Yes.
this one out. but
Why
that's the
don't
flag
you want
in
to do
that.
why don't you do this one?
Okay.
That way you can have a chance to speak, and then I'll do the final.
Okay, do that one last. So this next one is a fairly recent tradition that we're really proud to carry on, and especially proud that you are the recipient of this Texas flag that was flown at the Capitol of the sovereign state of Texas on February the 15th. So just a few days ago. And it is signed by the Sergeant at Arms of the Texas House of Representatives. But it is it's a fitting little memento for you to have. 12 and a half years is the longest that anyone has ever served on the board.
And I'm not sure I would recommend it.
No, you're not going.
So we welcome Buster to take your place. I feel a little personal connection only because you took my place. You stayed a lot longer than I did. I was only on the board for a little over 3 years. But in any case, this flag, we want you to display this proudly as just a very small memento of one piece of your service to the great state of Texas. So
Thank you.
thank you, Mark.
And then we've got two small final pieces. One is the historic appreciation of your service, which is essentially the picture off of the wall and your nameplate. We decided that we needed to step up our game a little, thus the flags came along, and very certainly a recipient that's so deserving. This one is from your fellow board members personally. And it was explained to me that it's not abundantly clear what this is, so let me describe it. It's actually a handmade kaleidoscope. It belongs on your desk for those days when you just need to get away. And the inscription says, Mark McAnally, in appreciation of your outstanding leadership and vision serving TALCB in Texas. So we want you to have this to remember us and your service, and we want you to know how much we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. When Jamie was talking about the history, it was very informative for them, and it was something that I also felt a need to fill in. The bad part about it was that a lot of times the history, I was the cause of the problem. So, that was something that they needed to understand. But no, it has been a true honor to serve in the capacity of the Executive Secretary of the Veterans Land Board. I never expected it to be this long either. To tell you the truth, behind the scenes, I would check in with the Executive Secretary periodically and say, okay, do you still want me to do this? And they're like, well, we're building vet homes, or we're doing vet cemeteries. Yes, please, keep going, keep going, keep going. So it wasn't anything ever intentionally planned, it's just it was the result of how that happened. But I've always said, and I remember saying this to Luis when he rotated off the board, and this really applies to everybody sitting up here, that everybody's dedicated to the profession, but these folks have a passion for the profession. And I would like to extend that to everyone out in the audience. The people that are the appraisers, the ones that are being regulated, you all are here because you have the passion. You're not getting paid to do this. And I know Joe Waller back there. He's been back there since I started these meetings in 1994, and he's been here ever since. And that's something to say, because I think that the board needs to hear from the industry, and I know that the board is going to, and the commissioner is going to encounter some more issues that are being already discussed at the federal level, and I hope and I encourage you all out here to visit with the board. If you belong to a professional organization, get these board members out there, but not only just to hear what's going on at TALCB, but also so they can get your reflections and your thoughts on the most current issues that are facing the appraisal profession today. Again, it's been a great honor to serve those that are the licensees, the public at large, and the taxpayers of Texas. Thank you very much. And I'm glad to have the photo. It was the best photo I've ever taken in my life. I break the lens after all that.
Give it to your mother.
To your mother.
You can read that your way. Next item on our agenda is item number 4, election of officers. There is a slate of officers approved by the board on the November the 20th, 2015 meeting. That slate is Vice Chair James Jeffries, Secretary Buster Renfro, and the floor is open for nominations, if there are any others, because our rules allow the opportunity for open floor nominations even today. Hearing none, is there a motion for the slate?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the slate as proposed.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously, and you now have new leadership. I will continue to serve as chair until such time that the governor appoints a new one. And then, of course, Mr. Jeffries will escalate to vice chair. And Buster, welcome. You'll be our secretary. Next item is agenda item number 5, which is the committee assignments. I have, for the most part, been able to speak to all of the board members about their committee assignments. In light of the fact that we have what we'll call some holdover leadership, we are going to just go ahead and make assignments, because we've been waiting for leadership transition for at least one other meeting, and I decided that I didn't want to lose a half a year of work in a year that we are doing planning for the future of this organization. So I've made the following assignments. Budget Finance will be chaired by Clayton Black. Buster Renfro will be on that committee, and Patrick Carlson will remain on that committee. Education will be chaired by Walker Beard. Mr. Jeffries will remain on that committee, and Brian Padden. AMC, of course, Mr. Jeffries got a promotion to chairing the AMC committee by legislative statute. As the vice chair of this organization, that's an automatic placement. Enforcement at this time will continue to be chaired by Ms. Fontana, and the Jesse Barba as the board member. There will be a vacancy in that committee for the moment. Because of its time commitment, I need to fill that one final slot, which I will try and do before our next board meeting. In other words, I'm having to do some recruitment. Thanks, Mark, and give me all the help that I can. The executive committee, of course, by my just simple makeup will be myself as chair, Jim Jeffries, and Buster. We do have some board members, just for for the record's sake, that are currently serving in working groups, and those will be retained. So Jesse Barba is your AQB background check chair for the working group, and Mr. Patton will continue to be our building committee representative on the combined working group with TREC. Any questions?
If I may make a request, maybe, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, and I do serve at the pleasure of not only you, but the governor. Be glad to continue on with enforcement. With that one seat that we do have open, I would like to please request to my fellow board members to help us out there. That's a pretty active committee, and if you have any questions outside of what Jamie can answer, please feel free to reach out to me if you need to.
We are going to need service at that committee level, and it is a big commitment of time, so I will circle back and we'll try and solve that at our first available opportunity. And I very much appreciate all of your willingness to step up and serve in higher capacity leadership positions, especially chairmanship positions. I recognize that they are additional commitments that you are making, and I recognize that all of us, this is not any of our professions. Being board members is not our profession. And so the commitments that we give to this organization, come straight from divisions we have to take away from either our real jobs or our families as well. So, next item is public comments. This is an opportunity for the members of the public to comment on things that are not on our agenda. Boy, I'm just really having trouble today. Apparently, I did jump straight over agenda item number 6, which is the discussion and possible action regarding appointments to the Peer Investigative Committee. The board does have the PIC summary report, and I believe you did receive the applications at the dais. Troy?
Good morning, board members, Madam Chair. Troy Bollier, Director of the Standards and Enforcement Services Division. And you should have the PIC Peer Investigative Committee application materials in your packet. And I have reviewed all of the materials, and staff is recommending approval of all the applications that you see there.
Troy, I have a question.
Yes.
The list we have in our binder list has numerous other names than these. Are these just historically picked members and the history of them?
Yes, sir.
And they haven't applied? Why are they still on the list?
This is really, this sheet, the chart that you're referring to is really just for historic purposes, for reference purposes, so that you can see the makeup in past years.
Because some of them, it looks like some of them haven't done any reviews. When you look across, you could go across, and they've got one that's a colored-in area, and then 000 colored-in area, and so it's just because they asked to be on the committee, and they've then forever will be on this list.
Well, for example, I believe there's one application today, Mr. Murphy, who for a couple of years was not. He had done some service. If you can see on there, Mr. Murphy, looks like he served in 2013 and 2012, and then there's been a year or two where he hasn't.
Where does he see that? Oh, I see.
Yeah. I just don't understand the list, why we have a list. If they're not actively on the PIC committee anymore, why do we even have them on the list? But that doesn't really matter. And what's the difference between a grade-in area and one with 0?
So the grade-in are the years where they were not, they did not submit an application, they were not on the PIC.
Okay.
And then the years that are in white reflect how many cases they've done. So in that case, if there's a 0, that means they did not do any that year.
Is there a similar list for mentors?
We do track mentors. I'm not sure if we have a similar list like this, but I can certainly find out, get back to you.
And the other question I have is that you've never felt a shortage of PIC volunteers necessarily, have you? I mean, you
No.
have plenty. From the looks of it, it's not a particularly,
Right, and there's, I believe, 9 applications here today.
yeah, so you got, so,
Is that it?
that's it.
Troy, hi. Just for clarification, I'm assuming that the declined assignments might be something like geographic competence or,
Yes, ma'am. That's, we do check into the basis for why the person is declining it. Sometimes there might be a conflict of interest. There might be geographical competency concerns. Sometimes they're quite busy in their practice at that particular time.
okay. It just calls for pause when you see so many declined, when you're offering them to work what they volunteered to work for. The other, I guess, question I have for you is, I guess I'm sort of kind of glad to see that we haven't had any activity in Houston, because I haven't received a review for a PIC file in quite some time. I know I just got this on the dais this morning, so I really couldn't figure it out, but as far as I can tell, there's one in Houston, Dane, who declined his one and only assignment in 2015. And then just for clarification, when Pamela Till states on her application that she nationwide staff appraiser for Linder, for the areas that she serves, is she competent? Has she declared any geographical competent area, or would y'all tend to send her files that, help me out with
Yeah,
her not stating?
we tend to obviously look at the area that person is located in, and we obviously touch base with them to make sure that they're comfortable, because they're making a commitment that they're geographically competent, because we're going to be relying on their review of the work. So yes, we do that follow-up when needed.
Okay. And just one last question. The starred comment at the bottom that said completed assignments for which compensation was not requested are not reflected.
Yes, ma'am. There are a couple of members who have voluntarily chosen not to request I believe it's the $75 reimbursement fee.
And therefore, you do not note them on this form. It says are not reflected.
Right.
Okay. So there possibly could be more assignments that were completed, yet if they were not compensated for them, they're not reflected on this chart.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Kristen Mormon, General Counsel. I just wanted to also remind the board that also before you later on today's agenda is the rule adoption for voluntary appraiser trainee experience reviews. And it is our plan that some of those reviews may be conducted by PIC members to assist the board in carrying out its mission.
Madam Chair, this is probably not on topic, but I'm wondering if, I'd like to see a similar list for mentors.
We'll put that on the end of the agenda on future
Great.
requests. I don't disagree with the comment. Are there any other comments or questions? I just want to respond. Ms. Fontana, you made some comment about those declining reports, and I want to encourage PIC members to continue to be willing to serve, but be willing to tell us if the timing's not good. I will tell you, over the course of the last year, I've gotten 2 or 3 phone calls from people who have a concern. They understand they volunteered to serve, but their practice is very busy. They know they can't turn it timely. I think it's responsible for them to make that telephone call, and so I don't think it's any reflection on them not desiring to continue to serve the state of Texas or the industry as a whole, but I think it's important that they feel free to do that. So I like the fact that they are willing to decline if they can't actually do quality work or do it in a timely manner, because it's important to the rest of the way the organization functions.
And just so you know, I do have those conversations periodically when I notice that it's been an extensive period, and touch base with that particular member to make sure, see if there's any issues.
I have one more comment. Could for the benefit of the new board members, could you give us a 1-minute synopsis of how that starts? You get a complaint, you go through your process, you give it to PIC member, and then the PIC member, isn't the appraiser board member also in the loop? And
Right, so the PIC process is in our statute, there's legal authority for basically having members of the industry who are appraisers serve by appointment as basically the investigator in lieu of a staff person reviewing the file. So after a complaint is processed and it goes through the intake process and the notice is sent and a response to that complaint is received, the staff will look at it and determine if it's appropriate to send it to a peer review committee member. And so it will go to that peer review committee member for purposes of investigating the allegations. And they will complete the same investigative checklist that the investigators use, and they'll complete that and return it back to us, and we will use that to complete the complaint process.
And doesn't a board member look at that before it comes back to you?
Right, so in addition to the actual PIC committee member looking and completing the checklist, there is a process where that report will go to the chair of that particular committee, and the chair will review it and make sure that it's complete and that there aren't any issues that need to be addressed before it goes to the staff for resolving the complaint.
You say the chair, is that designated when the complaint goes out to the PIC member, who the chair is going to be?
So each one of the appraiser members of the board serve on a different PIC committee. So we have 4 PIC committees.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know that. So each board member has...
It's a good time to think about it.
Of a chair. When you said that, I thought, well, what committee is that? So each board member you could cycle it back through a appraiser board member geographically across the state virtually. I mean, we don't have, you're not going to send all just West Texas stuff to me, for instance, now. I might be getting something from somewhere else in the state as the final overview, right?
Right.
Okay.
Other comments or questions?
Madam Chair, if I might just expand on that explanation, because some question has been raised about mentors. The mentors are not before the board this year, because you may recall that the board opted to appoint PIC members and mentors in alternate years. And so while we don't have any information for you at the meeting today, we can certainly get the chart information that Mr. Beard has requested. And then also, just to explain and remind the board that our mentors help serve an educational function when we have complaints against appraisers. One of the remedies or possible remedies for those complaints is to have that appraiser take mentorship from one of the board-appointed mentors and get some more education in a particular area that we found lacking when we were reviewing that complaint.
Thank you, Kristen. Floor is open.
We need a motion.
I do.
I make a motion that we accept the slate of PIC individuals as presented.
And I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now I can move to public comment, which is agenda item number 7. If you choose to speak to the board about items that are not on the agenda, we do have a request that you fill out form in the back of the room. We have one today, Mr. Mark Loftus. Mr. Loftus, we'd ask that you attempt to limit your comments to about a 5-minute window of time.
do it in about a minute. My thanks to the board and the commissioner. I'm Mark Loftus, an AQB certified use PAP instructor, a provider of continuing education courses, and a former investigator here with the board. And I have to apologize. What I'm going to bring up may have been addressed in some of the quarterly meetings I missed recently, but I just wanted to speak to something that a number of states are doing education-wise, and that's requiring that a certain percentage of continuing education classes be taught be taken in class, in live classes. I haven't done a complete survey of it, but at least 13 states require this, and certainly it's self-serving since I am an instructor and a course provider. But when I was an investigator at the state, that's when I first fostered this idea, not even knowing other states were doing it, because in the course of our investigations, we would often ask respondents about where they got their education. And unofficially, I'd say easily 75% of them were getting all their education online, and easily 100% of them weren't getting too much from it. As a consequence, I suggest that to the board. I hope they will take that up, and I thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 8 is executive session to discuss pending litigation or receive advice from counsel pursuant to Texas Government Code 551-071. The time is 10:40, and we will go into executive session to obtain advice from legal counsel and discuss pending or contemplated litigation, including settlement offers and enforcement actions. We anticipate returning to open session in approximately 25 minutes. 1:35, and the board is now back in session. I will apologize to the public. I obviously missed the mark in terms of my estimated length of time for executive session. We appreciate your patience and your continued attendance in our meeting. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, which includes agenda item number 9, the ratification of the official record for the board of the November 20th, 2015 meeting, and agenda items number 10A through M, which involve the agreed final orders on various matters. For the purposes of today's action, I will ask that agenda items number 10, 11, and M be removed for separate action and not a part, 10L and M, sorry, as not a part of this consent action.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the board ratify item 9 and approve items 10A through 10K as presented.
I second that.
So motion to approve the consent agenda as so stated by Mr. Beard and a second by Mr. Padden. Any discussion?
I just have just one comment and request. I noted in items A through K, staff, that the verbiage under mentorship states that a respondent shall complete 12 hours of in-person mentorship. If we can go ahead and make that now reflect our new policy and guidelines, that they also have the option to do video conferencing as well. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We will take up agenda items number 10L and M. Both of those items, I will be recusing myself from action on those items and will not be participating in the vote.
Madam Chair, I move that the board ratify items 10L and 10M as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Jeffries,
I second.
a second from Ms. Fontana. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes with all those voting unanimously with one recusal of myself. Brings us to agenda item number 11, which is staff reports.
Madam Chair and board members, good morning. It still is for another 20 minutes. Welcome to your regular quarterly meeting. Thank you, as always, for your service to the people of Texas as volunteer policy makers. It is because of you that Texas continues to lead the nation in efficient and effective regulation of real estate appraisal professionals. Recall that this meeting is being live streamed on the internet and recorded for the official record of your deliberation and actions. So please be aware and ensure that your microphone is on when speaking. And although this is a regular quarterly meeting, there's also a first here today. Of course, we welcome our new board member. We look forward to Mr. Renfro's contributions to the continued success of our mission. And the staff, of course, wishes to express collectively our sincere thanks to Mark McAnally for his 12 and a half years of service to the people of Texas on this board. You made us, Mark, you made us better by your leadership. And there are annual items, things that we only see once a year. So thank you to the newly elected officers, and all of the newly appointed committee members. Thank you for stepping up to assist this body to fulfill its mission and charter. And lastly, we have our once every 2 years visit from the appraisal subcommittee here today. So welcome to Jenny Tidwell, and we look forward to her report. So in addition to your regular business of considering disciplinary matters, which you have now taken care of, there will be the proposal and potential adoption of administrative rules. And there are also important operating policy topics to be considered. You annually approve the agency's investment policy to ensure the protection of public funds entrusted to your stewardship. And that is on the agenda today, and for the 2016 period, we'll also be working on the biennial strategic plan. More about that in a minute. Your staff has been very busy since your last meeting in November. We have implemented all of the January 1 rule and policy updates driven by the law changes and proposed rules. The last of them are on your agenda today. And then we've been out speaking to groups of license holders in a variety of locations: Kerrville, San Marcos, here in Austin 3 times in the last month. And tomorrow I'll meet with the FACT Board of Directors to offer an update and to answer any concerns that they may have. Now, as a part of our annual or biennial strategic planning process, we will conduct a listening tour with 9 locations. That's a new high. I think the most we've ever done in a season for that is 6. And so we're really ratcheting it up this year because there's a lot going on. So we're going to actually visit 9 locations across the state of Texas during the month of March. Now, at your place at the dais, there's a copy of the schedule, which is a copy of the news release that was sent out. And it has attached to it all of the topics, listening tour questions, that are included in an online survey, as well as will be discussed at those listening tour locations. So we invite you to attend one or more of the sessions, and we'll send you electronically these documents as well and ask for your specific RSVP on particular locations. If you can come and join in to hear the license holders and other stakeholders' discussion of the various questions that we're going to propose. Of special concern to appraisers in the gathering is gathering feedback on the items proposed by the AQB, the Appraiser Qualifications Board, as potential areas for adding additional flexibility in various qualifications requirements. So also included is this discussion draft dated February 11th from the AQB, and you'll see there are 5 topics of discussion where the AQB is attempting to, well, they've opened these areas for discussion to see if there are ways that they can address the qualifications for appraisers while adding some additional flexibility there. So to make sure that there's still consistent quality preparation and administration of the appraisal field, but not just one road, okay? When they made a change last year, as you recall, where to be certified you had to have a 4-year college degree, unless you were already. Well, is there one of the, or 2 of the topics that are in here are about alternative education and alternative experience options. And so very interested in getting that feedback from the field about these topics. And we included them in the strategic plan listening tour because the comments are due back from this agency to the AQB and from the field to the AQB. So anyone can send comments directly to AQB, but they have to be done by March the 31st. So that'll give us the time to gather all of that and put it together for you, and we will send you copies of all of those consolidated comments before we submit them to AQB. So even if you cannot make it to one of the listening tour sites, please feel free. We encourage you to go on our website, and the survey is available online. All of the questions can be answered online. You can give comments directly there. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about anything that I have brought up. And if not, I'll turn it over to the division directors for their regular operational reports. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Well, we're not quite an afternoon yet, so good morning, Madam Chair and board members. Kristen Warman, General Counsel. Perhaps you noticed our new sign as you walked in the door. It has a gun with a big red circle and a slash through it. Just wanted to point out that as part of the legislature's enactment of open carry laws in Texas, the legislature, in its wisdom, did prohibit persons from carrying guns, whether concealed or open carry, into open meetings, such as the one we're having today. And as a result, the agency has adopted a policy. We had the signs made so that the members of the public who want to attend your meetings will know and understand that law. A copy of the agency's policy reflecting this law was left on the dais for you. Any questions about that policy?
Hello, Lori Deanda, Director of Reception and Communication Services. Please refer to the C1 report. In December, we received a total of 17,914 calls. We assisted 201 walk-ins and responded to 6,816 emails within a 2-business day time frame. The next report is the C2 report, which is the Customer Service Survey Report. In the month of December, we received a total of 21 surveys. 9 were responded by email, and 3 were handled by phone, and 9 were submitted anonymously. And of the 21 surveys, 7 of them were positive comments and the assistance of staff members. The next report is the C3 report, which is a new report that will be included in all future meetings. This report involves the average hold time and the average length of time it takes to complete the call. These numbers are listed per quarter. For the months of September through November, the average hold time was 8.5 minutes, and the average length of call was a little over 7 minutes. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, board members, good afternoon. It is afternoon now. Gwen Jackson, Director of Education and Licensing Services. The first report before you is the number of active certifications and licenses. As of December 2015, we had a total of 6,069 active appraiser certifications and licenses, which is an increase of 31 over our total for December of 2014. Of that 6,069, 795 are appraiser trainees. We also have 1,034 temporary out-of-state appraisers and 149 that are inactive.
Hi, Madam Chair, I have a question about that. For clarification, is the 1,034 and 149 up and above the 6,069 or inclusive?
It's above,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
The next report before you is a report on our number of appraisal management company registrants, or AMCs. We have a total of 181. Since the program began in 2012, 13 AMCs have surrendered their registrations, 3 have been revoked, and 26 have allowed their registrations to expire. If there are no questions on that report, please refer to the next report, which is the fiscal year comparison for applications received and licenses issued. On this report, I'd like to point out that for the period of September 1 through December 2015, we had a 16.5% decrease in the total number of appraiser applications received compared to the same period in 2014. During this period, over 979 appraisers have renewed, and renewal licenses were issued. Are there any questions on this report? The next report is the appraiser examination year-to-date results for September through December 2015. And these reflect a 50% pass rate for state licensed appraisers, 44.7% pass rate for certified residential appraisers, 62.5% pass rate for certified general appraisers, and an overall pass rate for all appraisers at 51%. Any questions on that report? The next report provides us with a fiscal year comparison of examination activity between December 2014 and 2015. You can see that there's been an increase in pass rates for the certified general and the licensed appraiser, and that the overall pass rate is approximately 5% less than in December 2014. Are there any questions on that report? If there are no questions, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Steve Sparopoulos, Information and Technology Services Division Director. Today, before I go into the I-1 report, I would like to give you some information regarding a recent test that we went through in the IT department. The Department of Information Resources of Texas, that's DIR, deals with the IT throughout the state of Texas. They help agencies such as ours with hosting, information on their servers and performing testing for in our case, the ability for someone to be able to log in to our systems clandestinely, okay? So it's called a penetration test. Every year we go through this exercise with DIR where they will connect and try to get into our systems and see what information they can access, if any. They have two main objectives. One of those objectives was reached, and they notified us of the issue, and we immediately rectified that problem so as to close that door, if you will, so as not to let anyone get in by those means. I obviously can't share the details of that because we're streaming and we don't want to give the bad guys any information, but suffice it to say that we no longer have that gap, and that has been corrected. Okay. Any questions on that?
Yes, is that test something that's done by policy once a year, or?
Actually, it is done by policy, even though in our case it's not required. We still voluntarily go through that testing.
And the timing's once a year? Or?
And it's once a year, yes. It's around beginning of the month of December until the middle of January. Takes several weeks to complete. All right, so for the I-1 report, we had increases in total pages viewed over the last fiscal year to date, for a total of 2,495,013 pages viewed, and our total monthly unique visitors was also up to over 100,000 for this fiscal year to date total. Our online transaction utilization was also up on applications and renewals to 44% and 91.7% respectively. Our AMC panel transactions were all done online. However, we do give licensees the opportunity to submit those on paper if they want to. Nobody does, so we have 100% there. Any questions on that report? Thank you very much.
No questions, but I would like to offer a kudo and an accolade, and also through Troy. I had made a request that something be presented on the website, and I very much appreciate your work with staff and the timely manner that was done. I was really impressed, so thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Melissa Huerta. I'm the Director of Staff and Support Services. And before I present my reports, I'd like to introduce a new staff member to my division. Sunita Woolen is our new HR specialist. She started back in January. She's from Huntsville, Alabama. She received a Bachelor and Master of Science degrees from Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois. Ms. Woolen has an impressive background in computer technology and in the educational arena in various capacities. She spent several years of her career at Alabama A&M University in Huntsville, Alabama, and at the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina. Her future goals include obtaining a PhD and growth within the human resource arena. We are pleased to have Sunita on our team.
Wow, impressive.
All right, the first report here before you is the S1 report. It's the budget status report. I don't know if you can bring it down just a little bit. There you go. Thank you. As of December 31st, I made some comments over on the side to explain some of the variances that are quite a bit off from where we should be at this time of year. One of them is the office rent, and this is the lease with the Texas Facility Commission, and it's been paid in full for the year, and this is due to the SWI cap allocation. And for a new board member, the SWI cap is a statewide cost allocation plan. And so services that are provided by a central agency, such as our accounting, payroll, building, and maintenance, are identified by the governor's office and then allocated to the appropriate agencies. Then the agency has to reimburse the general revenue fund for these expenses. And our lease is written so that any lease payment is reduced by any SWI cap expenses that are related to our business, our leased space. The other item on here is the Versa annual maintenance, and it's also been paid for the year. Then on our revenue side, our license revenue collections are on target with our projections. The AMC revenue is low, and that's because most of these renewals occur in the last quarter of the year. The administrative penalties are also, the collection is higher than what we had projected at this time because of a payment administrative penalty that was collected in December for $28,000. Are there any questions on this report? If not, my next report is the S1A report, and this are our investments as of December 31st, and the reserve balance, for the reserve balance in our operating account. We currently have 3 treasury notes that will mature at various times, and the market values of these investments as of December are $349,883, and the treasury note earnings through December, $812.50. Does anybody have any questions on this report? All right. Concludes my reports.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. Troy Bollier, Director of Standards and Enforcement Services. And before I go over my reports today, I wanted to introduce 2 new staff members that have joined the SES team. First, we have our new staff attorney, Mark Lee. And Mark has been an attorney for a number of years. Most recently, he's come from the Texas Workforce Commission as a hearings officer. So he has a lot of experience with administrative law. And prior to that, he spent a number of years handling civil litigation in private practice. So we're really excited to have Mark join in our group. I'm really excited in particular because now I'm not the only attorney trying to deal with stuff, so.
I apologize, Troy, you said the last name's Lee?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then we also have Novi Rini Campbell. There's Novi. And Novi is our new legal assistant, and she started in January. And Novi has an extensive background as a legal assistant. She has a paralegal certificate. Most recently, she's worked at the Attorney General's office dealing with condemnation issues in the Transportation Division, and she's also worked in a private practice setting with ad valorem litigation. So it was very exciting to have an interview with someone who knew what USPAP was, and they weren't an appraiser. So we're glad to have Novi on our team also.
Lucky you, an exciting life you lead, we can tell.
So the first report you have in front of you there, it gives you an idea about appraiser cases. You can see at the bottom left that as of late January, we have 194 total open cases. You can see from the top portion on the right-hand side that we have opened 132 matters so far this year. And you can see in the bottom right-hand in the brown way at the bottom that so far we've closed 139. So we've closed a little bit more than we've opened. The next report is basically the same report regarding appraisal management companies. And we continue to see not too many complaint matters. You can basically see that currently, as of the end of January, we have 3 open matters. And you can see that so far this year we've taken in 3 matters. And you can see the bottom right that we've closed 4. The next slide gives you an idea about total open complaints. And as you can see, we've made significant strides over the last several years. I will note that some of the small number of cases that are quite a bit older are all really all special documented circumstances. That's a term that the appraisal subcommittee uses to describe cases that even though they might be over a year old, they have special circumstances and they don't reflect negatively on the agency. And most of those are actually what we call RFAs, or requests from assistance from law enforcement. And obviously in that situation, it's a situation where the agency really doesn't have any control. We've been asked under the statutory authority for providing assistance to law enforcement, and so we're really kind of waiting on a prosecutor or a law enforcement official to tell us that we can close the file, basically. But what you can see is that basically as at the end of January, we had really only 7 matters that were over a year old. 4 of those were requests for assistance, and 3 were matters that are waiting for disposition, and those 3 have been addressed here today. The next slide addresses case resolutions. And as you can see from the pie chart, that so far this fiscal year, we have 80 total complaints resolved. The vast majority of those are dismissals. So you can see the breakdown on the right-hand side there that 55 out of those 80 are dismissals of some type, and we've broken down the subcategories of dismissals. So it's roughly about 2/3 of the cases. And then about 30% are some form of a disciplinary action by agreement. That's the 24 at the top right. So they're all agreed final orders or voluntary surrenders like the ones that were addressed here today. Currently, we have not fully litigated any cases. We have had some that have gone partly through the SOA process and then resolved themselves. And then we did have one default situation. And I will point out the recidivism rate on the bottom right hand for the fiscal year 2016 might appear a bit high, and that is just simply because we're only partway through the year, and for some inexplicable reason we had a high number of individuals who so far basically in November is the only board meeting we've had this year, and there's just a high number of people who had previous discipline. So, and you can see there in the bottom left kind of the trend historically going back several years about the percentage of license holders who actually have discipline. So it's a very, very small percentage. The next slide gives you an idea, a little bit larger historic picture of the total number of complaints received, and we've broken it out by license type. And you can see that compared to 2010, so just after the financial crisis, we obviously had a lot more complaints, and that over the years has trended down. Obviously, we're still only partially the way through 2016, so we'll have to see how those numbers pan out. So the current indication might not be completely accurate until we see how many complaints when we get to the end of the fiscal year, at the end of August of this year. And then the final slide gives you an idea of complaints that were initiated based on an experience audit. And nothing really has changed since the last meeting in this regard. You can see fiscal year 2016 in the left-hand box there. It's the farthest right bar column, and there haven't been any complaints generated based on audits this year. Last year there were 3 that were all based on a supervisory appraiser. So I'm happy to answer any questions. All right, thank you.
Good work, Troy. Thank you.
Oh, there's one other thing I did want to mention, and I completely forgot. If you could go back to the one-year-old complaints. There we go. And you'll be hearing more from Jenny Tidwell, obviously, about our ASC audit, but I wanted to point something out in particular. We have resolved all of our one-year-old cases for the audit. Obviously, there's those small number I told you were special documented circumstances that are accepted. So we're very excited about that. But in addition to that, we've actually gone above and beyond that, and we have actually resolved all cases that are more than 9 months old, with the exception of one case that's pending at SOA. So the group has worked really hard. They've been very aggressive about working through cases and getting them resolved appropriately, and I'm real proud of them. And So we're no longer worried about, okay, let's just make sure we get to the 1-year mark. We're down to about 9 months. So I wanted to share that positive news with you.
Troy, if I may, thank you for that. But could you please remind the board why it's important to resolve the cases in a timely manner, outside of the obvious, that people want their matters resolved, and some of the history, because we actually were under, there was a letter to this effect a few years ago.
Sure. So just to give some of the new members perspective, the appraisal subcommittee is our federal oversight body. And as you'll hear more from Ms. Tidwell, they have a number of areas that they audit to ensure that our program, along with other states, are meeting the federal requirements for an appraiser regulatory program. And one of those requirements, as it relates to enforcement, is kind of a benchmark of resolving complaints within a year. So you get a complaint on January 1st of 2016, absent special documented circumstances that they grant on an individual basis, that case should be fully resolved by the following year, January 1 of 2017. And in the past, historically, because of a whole bunch of different factors, staffing and just the trend in complaints, we had gotten quite behind. There was a significant backlog. And so we were very happy in 2014 that we finally got our first audit where that was no longer an issue. And then we're confident today that we're going to have more positive results because we've improved on that goal and we're down to about 9 months.
Yes, and I will echo the compliments that you've received. When I arrived here in 2011, I believe, the focus was regularly on how we could resolve a significant problem. And not only have you resolved the problem, it appears, but going above and beyond that. And I want confident that the board appreciates that as a whole. I'm sure it makes your job a little more pleasant to come in every day without having that brick over your head in terms of just getting the numbers completed. But I think it allows us to do a better job as a whole as well. So thank you for your diligence toward that effort and the hard work of all of your staff.
And if I might, just, Troy, because of being the enforcement chair, not only thank you, but show my appreciation for going up and above. Your leadership is very well valued. And if you would, I really like seeing the staff in the board meetings, but pass on my appreciation for their hard work under your leadership. Invite them. Let them get in here too. I'd like seeing them in the board meeting. We don't get eye to eye with them very often, but let them know that from me, please.
Madam Chair and board members, moving to agenda item 12A, discussion and possible action to adopt amendments to 22 TAC 153.18, Appraiser Continuing Education. The amendments to this rule add additional opportunities for appraiser license holders to obtain continuing education credits consistent with criteria established by the Appraiser Qualifications Board and statutory changes to Chapter 1103 of the Texas Occupations Code that were adopted by the 84th Legislature. No comments were received on the amendments as proposed, and staff recommends adopting the amendments as published.
I move that staff is authorized on behalf of the board to submit for adoption amendments to 22 TAC 153.18, Appraiser Continuing Education, without changes to text or published in the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for adoption.
Second the motion.
Motion by Ms. Fontana, second by Mr. Jeffries. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 12B.
This agenda item involves amendments to Rule 22 TAC, or Texas Administrative Code 153.22, Voluntary Appraiser Trainee Experience Reviews. This is the rule that I referenced earlier in the meeting today, where we anticipate that our PIC members will assist us in conducting these voluntary trainee experience reviews. This rule establishes a voluntary program through which a trainee can submit a work file and receive feedback from the board about their appraisal work product before they submit an application for licensure. No comments were received on the new rule as proposed, and staff recommends adopting the rule as published.
Madam Chair, I move that the staff is authorized on behalf of the board to submit for adoption a new rule, 22 TAC 153.22, voluntary appraiser trainee experience reviews, without changes to text as published in the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for adoption.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Jeffries, a second by Mr. Beard. Any discussion?
I do, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank the Education Committee and the Chair, Mr. Beard, for working so diligently on getting this through. It was something that the Enforcement Committee really supported you guys with, and actually, I think we sort of kind of tried to partner with beating our heads around it. If I can, just for the record and for public awareness, note that this rule does state that as a result, any results come back will not result in a complaint against an appraiser trainee unless the review appraiser or trainee work product reveals two things. That is, knowing or intentional misrepresentation, fraud, or criminal conduct, or serious deficiencies that constitute grossly negligent acts or omissions. And I just want to thank the Education Committee, because I think that we have been able to provide the trainees of Texas with a great vehicle to have their work reviewed, and with some safeguards around any fear of what that submission might cause them. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt, very good work. So we have a motion and a second. Other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item 12C.
This agenda item concerns possible action to adopt amendments to Rule 22, Texas Administrative Code 153.27, License by Reciprocity. The amendments that were proposed here would streamline the board's process for verifying an applicant's licensure in another state, and will lower the cost to the applicant and simplify the application process for applicants who apply for license by reciprocity. It will allow the board to rely on the National Registry instead of requiring those applicants to submit a certificate of good standing from their other state that they would be coming from. No comments were received on the amendments as proposed, and staff recommends adopting the amendments as published.
Madam Chair, as the third member of the Education Committee, I'd like to move that staff is authorized on behalf of this board to submit for adoption amendments to 22 TAC Section 153.27, licensed by reciprocity, without changes to text as published in the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes required for adoption.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Padden. Mr. Black, was that you with the second?
Yes, that was me.
Second by Mr. Black. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Takes us to agenda item number 13, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of the investment policy.
Good afternoon again. This is the reserve funds investment policy. This is the same policy that was approved at the February 2015 board meeting last year. There have been no changes to the policy. As the policy states, the investments are laddered so that they mature at different times throughout the year. Funds are held and invested by the Texas Treasury Safekeeping Trust Company in authorized investments of state funds per our government code. The section 2256.005 of the government code requires that the investment policy be reviewed and approved annually by our governing body.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Floor is open for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we adopt the investment policy as presented.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Beard, second by Ms. Fontana. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Takes us to the best part of the meeting, the report from the Appraisal Subcommittee.
Down to the end.
Got a big old book, I tell you that.
You're going to have to do the intro. I'm not sure she heard.
She did.
Okay.
Best part of the meeting.
Always save the best for last.
Thank you for allowing me some time. I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure being here in the great state of Texas, especially because of your weather and the fact that I left a blizzard when I left D.C. First of all, my name is Jenny Tidwell, and I am a policy manager on the staff of the Appraisal Subcommittee. And I brought gifts along for you. And I kind of refer to this a good bit as I make my presentation. The first item I'd like you to flip to is in the back of the annual report here. We have pages numbered R, and there are reference pages. So if you flip to page R5, you'll see a copy of Title 11. So I like to point this out. Title 11 was our enabling statute that was implemented was promulgated in 1989 and was amended in 2010 by the Dodd-Frank Act. And this is a copy here that contains the amendments. And I'd just like to kind of start with it because it's the whole purpose of why I'm here is right there in the first paragraph. And then the next section is establishment of my agency. So I like to explain that we're often confused with the Appraisal Foundation, the Appraisal Standards Board, AQB. All of that is a nonprofit organization. And we are the federal agency that was started from Title 11 that oversees and monitors the whole appraisal regulatory scheme as it applies to federally related transactions and federal financial related transactions. So let me now ask you to flip to page 11 in the front of the book, the regular numbered pages. On page 11, you will see our member representatives that sit on our board that we call the Appraisal Subcommittee. We're actually a subcommittee of the Federal Financial Institutions Exam Council. So they're examining the banks, and we are the subcommittee in charge of examining state appraiser regulatory agencies. And these are the 7 members of our board, the representative members there, so I thought you might like to see that. So basically 7 banking members along with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and HUD. Oh, and the Federal Housing Finance Agency. And then the very next page shows our staff. So as I said, we're a federal government agency, and we have a staff of 12 to 13 persons. And that's probably one of the smaller federal government agencies you've ever heard of. Our functions as laid out in Title 11 primarily concern overseeing 3 things: state appraiser regulatory agencies, the National Registry, and so the National Registry contains all appraisers who have met the criteria and are eligible to appraise in federally related transactions, and they are on the National Registry on our website at asc.gov, and you can see if they are in good standing in their state, what every state that they hold a credential in, and if they have any disciplinary action that is affecting their ability to practice. And then lastly, we do oversee and monitor the Appraisal Foundation, this nonprofit organization I mentioned. And the foundation has many boards on it, and two of the boards are the Appraisal Standards Board that we're familiar with because they promulgate USPAP every 2 years, the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. And then the other board that we're most in touch with is the Appraisal Qualifications Board that sets forth the minimum criteria. The minimum criteria sets forth all education, experience, college coursework, and examination to obtain a credential, supervisor and trainee requirements, and continuing education requirements for renewing a credential. Another item in the annual report that I would like to point you to is on back to the reference pages in the back, R17. These are our policy statements. So Title 11 is our enabling legislation, and until it was amended in 2010, it only gave the subcommittee policy-making authority. So we operated through policy statements versus regulations. We currently have been given regulatory authority through the Dodd-Frank Act amendments and anticipate beginning to promulgate regulations. But until that happens, we are currently still operating under our policy statements. So I would like you to see the contents of our policy statements on page R17 here. There are 7 policy statements that follow the 7 areas that we review when we come in every 2 years to conduct a compliance review. Policy statement number 8 spells out the state's due process rights should the ASC ever make a finding of noncompliance and begin to take any type of interim sanction or process towards derecognition. Then policy statement 8 spells out the state's due process rights in that process.
Excuse me, is that also known as the nuclear option?
Exactly. Policy statement 8. I mentioned the compliance review. So as our function of overseeing state regulatory agencies, we have policy managers assigned to certain states, and I've been assigned to Texas since 2014, and I work with your staff on hopefully an ongoing basis. We stay in contact. I try to keep them informed of anything that I know about. I invite them to send me questions and stay in touch. But the main ways that we oversee are conducting regular compliance reviews. So a compliance review is a time where we come in and we conduct an audit, so to speak, of all 7 areas that are covered under our policy statements and Title 11, and make a report about each of those 7 areas. Now, before we ever come on site, we ask staff to send us all kinds of information that we study ahead of time. We review your statutes, regulations, any proposals you have. We read meeting minutes for the past 2 years. We go through your website. We go through past correspondence. And really anything that touches those 7 areas before we ever come on site. And then we select files that we want to review while we're on site to confirm or to get a good picture, an overall picture as best we can in a short period of time of how things are going in each of those 7 areas. So we target certain files based on the materials we've studied, and we randomly select files just to get an overall picture. And so when we come on site, and I say we, I was assisted by another policy manager, Neil Finnicetti, for reviewing the files, but unfortunately he had a personal emergency and had to fly home yesterday morning. So he's not here for me to introduce you to him, but he was working with me on reviewing the files the majority of this week. So we come in and we talk with staff and we review files and try to get a clear picture as best we can. You know, we want to paint the most accurate picture we possibly can of the last 2 years of what has gone on here in Texas. So let me ask you now to flip to R in the back, page R39. So we review the files and basically form our preliminary thoughts on the program, and we go over it orally with the staff, and then we also make an oral presentation to the board while we're here. And then that gives you some time, should there be anything that you might have to address, to be formulating your ideas of how you want to respond to that. After I go back, I prepare a staff report that is closely tweaked by the director and executive director and our legal counsel at the subcommittee, and it will come to you in the form of a preliminary staff-to-staff report. It actually will come to your staff, and it gives them an opportunity to respond to anything that may be found during a compliance review. Once we receive that response, or a 60-day period goes by, then a presentation is made to the subcommittee. They meet every other month, and they make the decision of the reflection of the final compliance review for the state. That is the only document that is public record, and they are all available on our website. On page 39, I just wanted to point to the rating criteria. Once the subcommittee reconciles our preliminary compliance review along with your response, the subcommittee makes the decisions about the final rating for the state, and the rating criteria is the middle column there. The left-hand column shows the 5 findings that can be obtained, and then the last column there is the review cycle. So of course Texas is on a 2-year review cycle, and that is why I'm here, and it's been exactly 2 years since I've been here conducting a compliance review. I mentioned that the Dodd-Frank Act gave the ASC rulemaking authority. We had to form an advisory committee in order to get recommendations for any rules that we promulgate. And that committee met for a year and made those recommendations to the subcommittee, and the subcommittee is currently taking those recommendations under counsel and formulating rules that we will basically change the policy statements from policy statements to rules, and those will all be exposed for comment, so you will have another opportunity to comment on basically the rating criteria that states are held to. So be looking for that. We also will be promulgating rules with regard to AMCs. So the AMC final rules were published, and their period ran out in August 10th of 2015. So now states have until August 10th of 2018 to bring their program into compliance with those final rules if they want to continue to allow appraisal management companies to perform services in their state for federally related transactions. So as we are going around conducting compliance reviews, we're not looking at AMCs currently, but we are offering informal comments on states that have existing programs such as Texas. And I'm aware that you have an AMC advisory committee and that you're, already starting to look at the final rules and what tweaks you may need to make. So we made some informal comments regarding our thoughts on your existing statutes, regulations, and I have given those to Kristen, and she has those, and we'll share them with the committee. And again, those are informal comments. What we really invite is once you formulate proposed amendments, that we have an opportunity to review and comment on them at that time. Oh, and I do want to mention that we will be glad to review and comment at any phase of, you don't have to wait till a formal phase. If you want us to review and comment at any point along the way, we'll be glad to do that. We try to get back within 2 weeks when we're asked to comment on statutes and regulations. We make every effort to get our comments back to you within 2 weeks. So just keep that time frame in mind. A couple of other things I just want to mention from what's going on in our office in DC. The Unique Identifier Project, we are hoping that by the end of 2016 we will have Social Security numbers out of our registry and out of our office, and we will be assigning unique identifier numbers to appraisers on the National Registry, and it will be a more accurate hopefully way to link appraisers in each state, that their records will link together, that it is the same person, and basically protect that Social Security number. We have a goal of having the AMC National Registry up and running by 2017. We'll see how that goes, because that all depends on our rulemaking process. And the only other thing I was going to mention was the future criteria changes. So I mentioned that USPAP changes every 2 years. The criteria changes on an as-needed basis, and before they ever make changes to the criteria, the AQB has lots of concept papers, discussion drafts, hearings, and all of that to hopefully vet all of the changes with all interested parties beforehand. And Doug already mentioned that where they are in that process right now is they already had a concept paper that they issued in July of 2015. They followed that up with a public hearing in Washington in October of 2015, and he just provided you their discussion draft that came out on February 11th and talked about it. So please comment. This is your opportunity, and there are some interesting things in there that we would like feedback on states on what their feeling on them is, or they would, I should say. So from the standpoint of introducing myself and telling you who I am and why I'm here, I think I've kind of covered everything there. Before I get into the specifics of the compliance review and the findings there, I just want to ask if there's any questions or comments or anything you wish me to expound on. Basically a chance for me to catch my breath here. Anything at all? Okay, well then I will jump in, and I will take you off of your pins and needles, and first of all say that we did not find any area that was out of compliance. We reviewed all 7 areas, and all 7 areas are in compliance with our checklist of what needs to be accomplished. I do, of course, want to go through each area and talk about them and make some comments regarding them. we often make comments verbally and then sometimes also make comments in the terms of areas of concern in our reports. An area of concern is basically an area that's technically in compliance, but we've identified something that it continues could possibly cause the program to become out of compliance. So that's why I like to go through each area, because I may have some comments despite the fact that everything is currently in compliance. I just like to emphasize and give reminders. So with that said, I want to first thank the staff for their graciousness, their professionalism. It's no fun. I've been on the other side of this process, and I know it's no fun having someone come in and audit your work. But they have been absolutely a pleasure to be with, and they have been forthcoming and professional and completely transparent. It's been a real pleasure to be here and work with them. I actually look forward to compliance reviews in Texas, so that says a lot about the attitude of your staff. So I wanted to say that right up front, and also that I'm a real pain when I'm around, because I'm asking for documents and questions and taking them away from their day-to-day job, but they have been more than helpful. Then next, I also want to thank board members and your six committees members and your peer investigative committee members and your mentors for your time and service, because this excellent report that I'm going to give about all of these areas is based on the participation of all of those people, and everybody participates and cares about this industry, and it shows. And so I just want to thank you for your service and your time. With that, I will start with area number 1. It's statutes, regulations, policies, and procedures. And, basically we go through everything, your statutes, your regulations, policies, procedures. That can include, applications, copies of licenses, all types of different things. And as I said, we found everything in compliance. And I do have 2 comments. One is that your regulations don't specify that the experience to be a supervisor must be in the training jurisdiction. The criteria has that specified, but your regulations don't specify that. However, in practice, that is what occurs, is staff does check for that 3 years of experience in Texas. So all I want to do is emphasize that that is the correct methodology, is to ensure 3 years of experience in the state of Texas. And then my second comment has to do with your statute of limitations, which you recently changed, but you've always had one. It's kind of changed from 2 years from discovery to 4 years from date of incident or date of appraisal report. And our policy statement basically says that a state that closes complaints solely based on a statute of limitations without any decision based on the merits of the complaint is not in compliance with Title 11. And so I just want to emphasize that you need to keep an eye on that, especially in light of the fact that you just changed your statute of limitations, just to ensure that cases you're closing under your statute of limitations are not cases that otherwise might have merit to go forward on. So I encourage you to keep an eye on that. And I'm also going to deliver back to the subcommittee a request to possibly give states more guidance on a statute of limitations, a length of time. So I'm going to pass that back to them, but I just wanted to pass on this comment to you that that is a potential portion that could, in the future, cause you to fall out of compliance, so keep an eye on it. The next area we look at is temporary practice. Everything was beautiful there. Basically, Title 11 gives the right to an appraiser who is in good standing in a state, who is in good standing with the subcommittee, to go and practice on a temporary basis in another state. And we have spelled out certain criteria that must be met by the state to issue that temporary permit. And your staff does a beautiful job of ensuring that all of those things are done correctly. The next area we look at is the National Registry, and I already mentioned the National Registry, and our goal is to make that as reliable as possible. And so when we go into the states, we definitely look to make sure that states are reporting data to us, that their data is accurate, that they're timely reporting things and getting all of their disciplinary actions on there, and that they're accurate. So I am very happy to report that Texas does a fantastic job with all of that, and they make sure that all of that data in there is reliable. And I'm very pleased to see that you're becoming more and more confident in the National Registry yourself and relying on it, and proof was shown today when you adopted a regulation amendment to rely on that and not ask for letters of good standing. So that really makes me feel good that hopefully we're making it as reliable as possible. The next area we review, Policy Statement 4, is application processing. And I really have to commend your staff in this area, because there were a lot of changes that had to be made when the new criteria went to effect January 1 of 2015. And your staff had to make a lot of processing changes in order to meet the requirements under the new criteria, and they did a fabulous job. They got the word out there, and they made sure that there was plenty of time to meet all the deadlines. They were meticulous with requiring things, and just to name a few of the things that they were able to accomplish, they had to go from a system where before they were just checking education before they allowed applicants to sit for the exam, to a system where they checked education and experience before allowing them to sit for the examination. So they had a whole processing change to go through. They had to start ensuring the supervisor trainee course for supervisors who took on a new trainee and trainees who came into the system after January 1st. They had to make sure that trainees' education was taken within 5 years of the application date, that appraisers upgrading to the certified level could no longer use the in lieu of college education alternative. They had to have the bachelor's degree, and now the license level must have an associate's degree or the 30 semester hours of college. And also checking that the supervisors that the trainees are selecting have not had discipline in the last 3 years that affects their ability to appraise, and that they've got 3 years of certification experience here in Texas. So they had quite a few things they had to put into play, and they accomplished them all, and they did a fantastic job, and I really commend your staff for that, for having brought everything into compliance so beautifully. The next area, policy statement 5 that we look at is reciprocity. Everything is going beautifully with regard to reciprocity. Basically, it's an area that we're new at including in our compliance reviews because the Dodd-Frank Act gave us more authority over reciprocity, in that someone who has a credential in good standing in another state, and that state is in good standing with the appraisal subcommittee, and they submit an application here, then you essentially, if the requirements they met in the home state are at least equal to or better than the requirements here in Texas, then you have to issue them a reciprocal credential. And that is exactly what's happening here in Texas, and everything appears to be in compliance there. Area number 6 is education. Gorgeous job in education. Actually had a hard time picking courses to review because I knew everything on the list of approved courses was good to go, but even selecting files and looking at them, all of the courses were reviewed appropriately, all the documents that needed to be in there to know that that was an appropriate course that met the criteria was there. So we were really happy in that area. And that brings me to the final area of enforcement. And enforcement, again, is an area we put a lot of emphasis on and we spend a lot of time on. And when I was here a couple of years ago, you were really starting to get your teeth into your contingent dismissals with mentoring in your agreed orders and your mentoring process. And now I'm here 2 years later, and I'm seeing how beautifully that works, and really happy about it, and have pointed other states that are struggling with what you struggled with, being under a whole lot of aged complaints that you need to get worked, and yet still afford proper supervision of your appraisers. You developed a system that works really well, and I have pointed other states to you and said, look at Texas, look at what they're doing. They're doing a really good job, and they have come from a real big backlog of old cases to having zero. All of your cases over a year old have special documented circumstances, so your timeliness is again in compliance, just like it was last time we were here. And the quality of the work here, from the investigative staff conducting a thorough investigation to the legal staff looking at it for a strong legal standing, to having appropriate, documentation of everything, to an overall view of looking at disciplines across the range of everything you did in 2 years. Everything is fair and equitable, and so not only is the timeliness excellent, so is the quality of the enforcement process here. So I also offer kudos not only to the staff, but to your PIC members, your mentors, everyone in the process, as well as the board members. So excellent job, and hopefully Doug doesn't get tired of me saying, oh, call Doug Oldmixon over in Texas and ask him about his enforcement process, because it's brought them a long way, and you should be very proud of it. So with that concludes my report. What questions do you have for me? Other than comparing a Georgia accent to a Texas accent, I often get accused of being from Texas.
As the past chair for AMC, is there a report that you have on the AMC rules that we could look at or anything?
Actually, what I did was gave Kristen written
Okay, so she has a
informal comments that she has, yes.
That'd be great. Mm-hmm. I'll get those from her, but
Yeah.
I'll ask the chair, the new chair, to get those from her so I can maybe see them. But thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
While I still have the mic, if I may, wow, thank you. I know, just so impressed with staff, but it's good to hear because, you know, we charge them with these things and they're in the mud of everything and they come back to us and their insight has been, I think, very impressive to help, you know, solve some of these issues that obviously the facts, you know, are showing that they've done a great job at. So thank you again, staff. But thank you for that report. That does a soul good.
Thank you. Go ahead.
You're always welcome in Texas. We do appreciate the guidance that you've given us over the years and the kind words whenever things are going well is very much appreciated. There's been a lot of hard work in the last 5 or 6 years for sure to move the ball, if you will. And I echo my fellow board members' comments to the staff. Great job. We know it's not been easy. We know there have been lots of extra hours. We hope that on a very limited basis, you've seen us being willing to do a little heavy lifting on our own to try as well and assist in moving forward. So great job and good. That comes from good leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Douglas. We appreciate having a good, strong hand at the helm. Certainly helps all of us look better and move forward. So come back anytime.
Okay, I certainly will. Thank you very much for the time, and I echo all of your comments towards your staff.
Takes us to other business. Agenda item number 15, a request for potential future meeting agenda items. Anybody on the board have anything they'd like?
Madam Chair, I was going to ask that we could have a list of the current mentor members or people.
So noted. We'll get that for you. Or we'll get that to Commissioner, and he can get that for you.
I wanted to point out, and because it just happened this week, and I don't know the whole history of it, but it happened very quickly. All of that information, the mentor guidelines, the agreements, the application process, and a list of mentors is on our website. So you can see it at any time.
Great.
Okay? What we won't have there, because we don't track it, is because we leave it up to the individual respondent to select a mentor. We say how many hours and what topic matter, what subject matter they need this additional coaching and education on, but we don't actually we don't assign them, and so we don't track specifically how many hours on what topics was instruction provided by each mentor. I mean, it's in the file on each complaint pursuant to the contingent dismissal or the agreed order, but it's not something we track, is how many hours they provided service, or to how many respondents, since the respondents it's up to them to select one. And negotiate, by the way.
So they track it. Say again what you said, we're tracking, what are we tracking?
No, on our website is a list of mentors.
We just have a list of mentors.
Right, but we're not tracking how many hours of service they provided to respondents, because it's completely up to the respondent to select a mentor.
So we don't, okay, so they identify a mentor, they go through the mentor process, they send back to the enforcement team that I've spent my 3 hours with my mentor, and that's the end of that. We don't have any more details of the specifics.
Well, we don't create a big spreadsheet that tracks all of those. Okay, 3 hours was spent with this respondent, 1 hour was on highest and best use, and 2 hours was on how to select better comps, or something like that. We don't track that. All that information is available in the individual files, but we don't aggregate it.
Gotcha, okay. When we assign them that part of their discipline, we do define what they're to be, what the topics are with their mentor.
Absolutely. So I was going to take that as as the mission was already accomplished. If you want a list of mentors, it's on the website.
Okay, that'll work, thanks.
See how efficient we are? Anything else? Any other items of concern that the board would like to see as a potential future meeting agenda items? Of course, you can always call in, so feel free to do so. Let's move to agenda item number 16, discussion and possible action to schedule future meeting dates.
So you'll see on page 151 of 151, the very last page, that the meeting is currently set for Friday the 13th. No, we have no suspicious people here, so superstitious people here. We may have some suspicious people here, but no superstitious people. That's set for May, and then our default, if you will, for August would be Friday the 19th of August. So I ask you to, everyone, to look at their calendars and see if that is any kind of a problem, and of course, we will.
That works well for me.
We'll ratify it at our May meeting, but that's the proposed date, August 19th.
Very good. Next item, of course, is to adjourn, though our favorite one of all.
Do that.
We'll consider ourselves adjourned at 1 o'clock.
Hey.